He is a stage, film, and television actor, best known for playing Jon Irvin on ABC's NYPD Blue. He is currently appearing as child psychologist Dr. Joe on TNT's Major Crimes. His film work includes Life as We Know It, He's Just Not That Into You, Duck, Ravenous, Space Marines, and the upcoming Mind Puppets. He is the co-artistic director of the Antaeus Theater. His name is Bill Broctrup, and this is the Antaeus Sessions. So, Bill, thank you for joining us. Bill Broctrup, you are one of the artistic directors of the Antaeus Theater. Antaeus has a very unique role in the kind of theater community of Los Angeles.
Oh.
What has this theater meant to you?
Wow. Well, the thing about Antaeus that means so much to me is that it's a community of people. It really is like. That word family is thrown around a lot in show business and maybe other places too. You know, a group of people come together and say, oh, it's like a family. But it really is. We've been together for a long time, most of us. We have been in the trenches. We've been through a capital campaign to get here. We've been through, just putting on a show is tough. You know, putting on a season of shows is really tough. Putting on years of shows of seasons is Herculean. So the fact that we all are in it together, there's been, you know, marriages, births all throughout this whole thing. So it really is like a community, and not just among the actors in the place, but among our board members, among our donors, among our subscribers, our audience. Really feels like this is a home base for them, an artistic home base, and that makes me very proud.
You are no stranger to the acting world. You've done some time on NYPD Blue and a few other shows people will recognize. But what is the difference in your mind of television versus theater? Like, what's the emotional impact difference?
I love both. I've been lucky to have good experiences in both, and I never, I don't understand people who necessarily like one better than the other. Insofar as to me, it's all the same thing. We're all, when you're acting, you're trying to tell the story the best way possible, trying to make your character as believable and interesting and multifaceted as possible. And I've enjoyed both things. And I've been lucky to work with writers in both television and film who are fantastic. And so when you have great material to start with, it doesn't matter where you're doing it. But to me, the difference is, when we do a television show or something, when I've been working on Major Crimes on TNT, when we do that show, you have a take of something and you do it over and over again until you get it right. And there's a moment when the crew and the cast and everybody feels like, oh, that was the one. We know we got that one. Like that was the one. And then you put it out of your mind and never think about it again. It's like delete the files out of the brain. You know, you never think about it again. Here, you know, the cast of Les Liaisons Dangereuses, you know, they had a great opening night. They have to come back and do it again today. And they got to come back and do it again. And so even when you feel like we've done the best one we can, we have to come back and try and recreate that. And so the challenge there is to each night make it new. And that's a different challenge, but the skills that are used are the same in both, to me.
When you talk about coming back to it and making, you know, doing it, you know, time and time again, you can't just get one perfect take.
No, right? I want to. Sometimes you want to be like, I did one perfect take and now we're done. I never have to do that play again. I'm like, oh no, I got to do it tomorrow at 8, you know?
Does that, from your personal experience on the stage, does that actually make it harder? Like, after you've been doing the show for weeks and you just kind of get into maybe you get a little lazy about it? Does it require a little more?
I guess concentration. It requires concentration, and it requires focus. at the same time, you have the luxury of a lot of rehearsal. We have weeks of rehearsal, so you really can like nail a relationship or a moment or whatever it is in the scene that's needed, a speech, whatever it is, you have a chance to really nail it. Sometimes in television you feel under-rehearsed, and so you're like, wow, I wish that we'd had like, 2 days, let alone 2 weeks to work on this. So sometimes, for that reason, I prefer the theater in some ways for that reason, because I like kind of, my favorite part is sort of trying to polish the thing. So once it's all in place and the lines are learned, the blocking's done, and we've all the technical stuff is done. The fun part for me then is the nightly working on the scene with my partner and kind of really polishing the little tiny details. That's the part I enjoy the most, and that you get to do more in the theater.
Now, Bill, growing up, when you saw your first theater or television show, and you said, you know what, that's for me. When was that moment? When were you just like, I gotta do that. I gotta be that guy that's up on stage. Or
I wish I was one of those cool people who doesn't say that it was like doing plays in high school and stuff, but it was kind of doing plays in high school. And it's funny, the thing that I enjoyed then is the same pleasure that I get now out of it, which is the sort of, as I said earlier, the immediate family feeling, or war zone feeling, I guess. It depends how you think about it, but like the kind of Band of Brothers feeling that you get when you, when I was doing like community theater in Tacoma, Washington, Tacoma Little Theater and whatnot, and then in high school, everybody comes together. The curtain is opening night at 8 o'clock. It's happening. Ready, not ready, costumes on, costumes off. You're going on at that time. It's happening. And so there's this, it's almost like disaster conditions or war conditions or something. Everybody has to pull together. And everybody pulls together and does their job, and then the thing happens. And that creates bonds with people and a kind of intimacy with people that is what I mean when I say family. And that is what still happens here. So that's, it hasn't really changed since actually junior high. It hasn't changed. It's the same thing.
One of the things about Antaeus, they have the dual cast.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are familiar, there's an understudy tonight, but two separate casts is pretty unique.
It is.
How has that kind of affected the ensemble, audiences? How has that resonated and been received?
It originally started off as a kind of a way to solve the problem of actors in Los Angeles, which is most of the people here make their living in film and television. The theater money just isn't the same. So people make a living in film and television and need to be available for that work, which often comes at the very last minute, but still wanted to do theater, still want to do the kind of plays and things that they grew up doing or they learned in college or that they love, that really speak to them. These big stories with big eternal themes, the kind of work that we try to do. So this allowed people to do both. So that if you got a job, you could go to Vancouver for a couple of days and shoot a pilot or something, and still be able to not screw everybody in the play by leaving. So this allows you not to have a kind of an under-rehearsed understudy, but to have an equal person. So it was a logistical answer for Los Angeles actors. What we have found is that in many ways it can be an artistic thing also, because you get to create the show with somebody, and you notice after a while that you stop saying like my character and you start saying like our character, and we would do this and we would do that, and I think that's really telling to me. You often get, like with the people, a very close relationship with the guy you're creating this with, because you start comparing notes and thinking about things that you might not think of otherwise. It might not occur to you otherwise. If we're blocking a scene, where we're going to move on the stage and everything, and you think we should sit in the chair and I think we should go over to the window, I have to kind of justify in my head or discuss why I think going over there is better than what you think is here, and we have to kind of hash it out a little bit. Whereas if I were doing it on my own, I may not have ever considered the option of sitting in a chair. I would have just done window without even thinking about it. And I think this makes you kind of really justify your choices and really, really examine why you want to do what you want to do in a scene in a way that you don't when you're on your own. And one other thing that you get to do is an actor, you're in it all the time, and so it's a very different thing from being in it and then seeing it on stage. And with the partner casting, you can sit in the audience and watch the show and see follow your character through it because someone else is doing it, and follow it through and say, oh, that's what that is. That's what that moment is. Now I get it. You follow your thread in the tapestry in a way that you can't when you're inside of it, and it allows that opportunity, which I think is really fun.
That's that's pretty cool.
I think it is. I think it's unique. It's unique.
It's an experience I think most actors have ever had the opportunity to have.
And as long as you get added, the only time that we've had any issues with it, and we haven't had that for a long time, but I'm thinking if it's true. No, we haven't had any problem with it. But is if people have if they have come in with an ego, if you say like, well, I think we should sit in the chair, and I say I want to go to the window. If the only reason I want to go to the window is because you said chair, and I'm just going to be like, well, then if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do something else. That's not good. As long as people come without an ego about it and say we are telling this story, which is I think the most important thing to everybody who's here, is how do we make this story clear? How do we make this story better? How do we make the story more compelling? Then you don't have an ego about it, and it's like we just work together on this, and you really become friends with the guy you're working with in a unique way.
You talking about the stories and the Herculean task you said, your words, about putting on a season.
Yeah.
That starts with picking the stories.
It does.
How long do you spend, and what is the process like for picking those stories? Because you've got all of history's plays to pick from. So how do you narrow that down, and what's that selection process like?
Well, it's a little, the way things are meant to work, not always the same thing as they do work, the way things are meant to work is, this is an actor-driven company, so it's all made up of all actors. It's a membership organization. And the actors bring in work that they're interested in. They initiate play readings of things that they find interesting for whatever reason. Speak to them now, compelling story, great parts, whatever it is. And they'll do a reading just around the table in the library or something. And the readings that are successful, we'll see those in another version, like in a bit of a staged reading version, or we'll see that in another version. And then the things that have the most resonance should move then on to the I'm trying to find a good place to stop. Come in. And of those readings, the ones that have the most resonance, the most sort of juice to them, those are some of the plays that then we look at. Now, it doesn't always work exactly that way, because when you're programming a season, you're also looking for not just work that the actors in the company are interested in working on, but we've got to have a variety of things in a season, because we have a subscription audience, and so I need to have something funny and something sad and something serious, and they can't all be Russian plays from the 1900s. I've got to have a little bit of a variety within that. We also are looking all the time for the great classics, Uncle Vanya and King Lear and these things. But we also want to find kind of unknown classics, hidden gems. This picture is from A Wedding Band, which is an Alice Childress play that nobody knows, which is crazy because it's amazingly relevant and was really powerful, but a lot of people don't know it. So we're looking for those kind of things. And we're also very eager about finding new spins on classics. So when we did Oedipus, we did something called The Curse of Oedipus, which was written for us by a playwright, Kenneth Cavender. So we wanted to have like a new take on an old story. So all those things kind of go into a big puzzle, and you got to get the rights for some of these things. Sometimes you don't get them. So someone else is doing it someplace, or some reason that they don't give you the rights. So it's a bit of a puzzle to make all those pieces fit. That's the job.
Specifically focusing on what you do as one of the artistic directors, when you look at where Antaeus has come from, because it's come a long way through its its different homes to now finally being in this fantastic new theater. Where do you see this ensemble, this family, in the next 10-15 years, or where would you like to see it?
Well, I would like very much. I'd be very proud and happy if we were still going. That's good. That's a good start. I hope that the excellence that our sort of founders brought to the company continues. We become known because of the quality of the work. I hope that we continue on with that and it doesn't change. We continue, I think, to professionalize. I would like to see the staff get larger. I would like to see our salaries go up. I'd like to see the actors paid more. I'd like to see all of us within that world, improvement for our artists. I would like to see continued engagement with our audiences. I would like to see. Is it going off all over you? I would. Now they're texting. People knocking on the door are texting, say they're sorry. It's like, oh my god. You can put that in. It's always. This is the fun thing about the theater here.
Yeah. It's a live working
theater.
It's a
live working theater. I mean, this is actually the best thing. That's something else I would like to. You can leave that in because that is something I'd like to see here, which is when we built the place. I was afraid that nobody would come. I was afraid we'd build this place and it'd sit empty, and we are full all the time. We've got a library, we've got a theater, we've got a classroom black box space, which is full of there's a meeting going on in there. They're warming up in the library, the actors who are going on, in a half hour. There's activity here all the time. There's classes in our academy. I mean, this place is packed, and that's the reason we built it, and I would like to have that kind of activity continue. I would like to see that activity grow, and I would like to see our audience continue to grow, and people who appreciate this kind of work, I hope they can find us, and I hope we find them, and we come together. Those are the things that would make me happy if I look back in, say, 10 years.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill.
Awesome.
So come see a show, see it twice, because there are 2 casts. And make sure you visit the Antaeus.
Yeah, Antaeus, come join us.
Yeah.
Come see us.
Come
That's
see
how
us.
that's how we remember
That's
the pronunciation. Did I tell you? Yeah, it's kind of lame, but Antaeus, come see us. Rhymes.
It works.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.